Recorded October 7th, 2024. Good afternoon, Brody. Good afternoon, Ray. Good afternoon, Rodney. How's everyone doing?
Wonderful. Just
hey,
wonderful.
Okay.
See, I put my James Earl Jones filter on the mic. I followed
in memory, of course. I appreciate that.
Yes, in the memory of James Earl Jones. Iconic voices of all time. I think you guys paid tribute to him last week or something and everything. So, Ray, what did you build? What did you break? What did you fix? Or who did you help? You can either one of the four.
Lots of folks that I've helped. I even helped myself spending many hours setting up VMs for my coursework, working towards finalizing my master's degree in cyber operations. So that was a fun new circle of hell that I just like found myself in and indulged, because why not? You know, it's all about the journey. So there's that. And then building out the Halloween special that's coming up with the Defender Experts Threat Hunters. So I'm super stoked about that. And then building out a public facing series, kind of the springboard, like a little bit of a spin-off. We're going to have some spin-off action. So more to come there. And then just keeping it together, Edward, just working towards Ignite, you know. But
wouldn't it be ironic if the team for Halloween episode ghosted us?
I always find that whenever they ghost in my life, it's always like a little poltergeist action. You know, they just come back just to, you know, revisit. So I just love a good like surprise, you know. So we'll see how that turns out. I'm optimistic, though. Nobody. It's going to be good.
It's going to be great. It's going to be great.
We'll find them. We have a particular set of skills. They ghost us, we'll find them. All right. Well, you did that. You still messing with this Cali project? Is that what you're doing?
Well, no, see, Cali came through for me. I had to. Hopefully, my professor's not listening, but I opted for Cali because that was the cooperative environment. Did I set up Docker Compose in that environment? No. But did I get the right answer? I'm guessing yes. I'm feeling confident. Ubuntu was very temperamental, Ubuntu. So a little bit of a vendetta there, but that's okay. I'm quick to forgive mostly.
Well, when you first came with this, you didn't mention any of the course details. You went rogue, decided you're going to use your own distro. You're going to install in your own operating version. You clearly said Docker. Run a Docker, put on.
Why are you doing trial here? This is just unnecessary.
Rod, and Brody tried to help you out. We sent you stuff like,
I didn't try to help her.
Brody knew she's beyond help. Don't do it.
I am the helper. That is what. No. Callie came through. I found lots of success with Callie. It was just the Ubuntu setup and Docker Compose that was causing some aggravation, but that's okay. That's okay. I made peace with it.
But I have to interject. You did note early on that you helped yourself. So,
and that is the greatest achievement, you know.
Yeah.
Bless us all. Bless us everyone for that. So, you know, a little bit of growth, a little bit, you know, struggle, but persevering, that's key.
Okay. All right, Brody, what'd you do?
What were the four options again, please?
What did you do? Yeah.
I'm very accusing question. What did you do? What did you break? What did you fix? What did you build? Or who did you help? Selfish.
I built a threat and vulnerability report for a company I'm working with, a customer I'm working with.
So use Copilot security, essentially.
They are not partaking in that particular amazing world-changing solution, unfortunately. And then I am now pressing their teams to do the changes. Yay!
Awesome.
So was it more?
Did you identify it was kind of like drift management or security drift or some things that not
They're launching
or things
a new AI-powered app. Go figure. And then we're running security and vulnerability against all of the resources within Azure that support said application. So this is the first time actually I've been advising or consulting on hardening Azure AI services. Thank you, Rod. That made me sound much more intelligent than my previous statement.
Well, I was curious because I keep hearing this drift management stuff a lot lately in reference to what we're doing at Microsoft from SFI, right? So monitoring, here's the baseline that you set if you configured everything correctly. And then 6 months from now, there's either changes or things need to be adjusted because the target has changed and stuff. So,
Well, that's the hardest part, right? It's not a, it's the whole security is a garden, not a destination kind of thing, right? Yeah, like things are going to change, requirements are going to change, the technology is going to change, our understanding of the vulnerabilities is going to change. So it's kind of like it's a full-time job. Go figure. That's why we're all here. So not surprised that Microsoft has to deal with drift. Every company has to deal with drift, whether they think they do or not. And then how do they know they have to deal with it and care and feed and put people in front of it and not just be reactive? That's just the entire industry in a nutshell, Rod.
It's going to be the next purview. Yeah.
Not a new concept. I mean, we've been trying to solve this problem for decades, and we're still talking about. We give it a new marketing term, drift control. How about change control? How about desired state configuration? How about policies? We've been doing this for years. You made a statement. You said they have to. I don't think that was the accurate, of what how businesses think. You say they know they do. Is whether they have the chance to do it or want to do it. Because when you do stuff like that, it is extremely disruptive to a lot of businesses, right? You force them to have very good documentation, effective change control, and you're right. That's a role. That's a job to do that, right?
Yeah.
But we're still trying to solve that problem by, it's always overrated by the needs of the business. I've yet to see security say, "Oh, pull back a little bit. That's too heavy-handed." But they still trying to do change control. You can call it whatever fancy it is, and change control management, CDBM, or whatever that stuff may be.
But you bring up a good point, Edward. I mean, the documentation part sucks, right? Nobody likes documenting. And I'm working with another customer, and we're working a lot with Azure Policy and Enterprise Policy as code. And we're going to build them some automation so that all of their changes or any modules, et cetera, that they end up using is self-documenting, which is probably the best use of AI I've come across so far. Is just, hey, can you just write all my documents for me so I don't have to do this from scratch? Because that'd be great. And sure enough, nobody likes to do that. Go figure. So that I think is important because nobody wants to do that or dedicate the time to doing that. The computers to do it for us. And I think that's important.
And now you have computer-generated, faulty, incomplete documentation. I think the problem is people don't know how to eat M&Ms. They want to take the entire bag. That's not why it's possible. It's not practical. Eat the red ones first.
It's efficient though.
You'll figure out which one's easier. Documenting the actual assets in a visual format, I think that's easy these days. If your environment,
well, it should be live though. Like it shouldn't just be like this thing that you create and then you file away in some folder and then you refer to the document, right? When you look at like Defender for Cloud and other solutions that showcase your estate and the vulnerabilities and the assets that you have in a live reoccurring format that helps you with drift control and that helps you just be up to date with what's going on. I'm so against just like, let's write down everything we have and then, okay, this is our document and it's up to date. Now keep this document up to date and no one's going to keep that document up to date. It's impossible, right? Yeah. It's got to be like this live thing that you're just consistently doing.
And the document has to be a common denominator asset, artifact, because you let computers read it. It may not read well to an auditor. They're going to go, what is this? How does this fit into NIST? How does it fit into blah? How does it fit into section 1? So we could have a whole episode on it. Let's make an episode.
Documents.
It's a good topic. Yeah, it is.
Security documentation architecture.
Yep.
How do you maintain it?
I won't be there for that episode. Thank you. That's all for me. Rod?
You're gonna leave that one. You go just Rodney, what you got, man?
I'll be short. I helped myself. If you want to go back down through your list again, I helped myself. Not at all technical, except that I'm taking time off from tech next week in preparation for a conference in Fort Lauderdale. My birthday is on Thursday this week.
You didn't have to
My
remind us who your birthday
My
is.
wife every year asks me what I want, and I don't know what to tell her because I can buy whatever I want anyway. So this year, though, 15 miles down from me at a convention center, Lee Majors will be there, and I am getting photos with him and getting one of these things, which I've not decided which one yet. One of these things behind me signed by him next on the 18th.
Very cool. I'm
Yeah.
going to be very uncharitable in my next comment. He's still alive?
You know, I keep crossing my fingers that he'll make it till next week. And
Okay.
that's important to
Does
me.
he just need $7 million to make it happen, or what?
Yeah, exactly.
Good one.
Or, you know, the government could come and try to take some of that back. I don't know. They need to feed people in North Carolina. So anyway, Edward, how about yourself, sir?
Well, since you asked, we'll go down that same route that you did. Let's talk about what. Did I get the right screen? Yes. No, not the right screen, but we'll leave it at that. I think you can see this right screen. All right. So last week, I got an interesting request from a customer around DLP stuff. And so around that, they wanted to know if there a way that we could capture the information in Sentinel when an endpoint fell out of compliance, either because sensor was unhealthy, they had a stale policy, and or it just failed to check in. Sensor being unhealthy and failed to check in are not mutually inclusive. I'm not a Purview person. So I reached out to my esteemed colleague, co-host of my show, alleged Purview and compliance expert, and gave him an opportunity to say, well, I helped Edward this week, but did he help? Didn't he help me or not? I won't name that person. I give enough clues I should have to
pointed
name.
you in the right direction and asked for clarification on the specifics of your reporting requirement.
So what I did was looked at it from a different standpoint and said, is the sensor the same sensor that is onboarded into MDE, you deploy MDE? And it is. That's a little bit of an asterisk, though. You don't have to have MDE to run Purview. You just have to do some other configurations to come up with a pseudo sensor to report back on the things that Purview can see. I learned a lot about Purview. It's powerful and it's hard. I want to do it. So what we ended up doing, right, the KQL query, it was off, and then Rod helped me straighten it out. So I said, well, if I can report on the sensor health, the data tables don't match, but I know what they represent. So what we did was we took it, my environment here, and we wrote this query. And so when you write this query here, let me click up in the window. Here, I'll put it in the chat too, so everybody can see it too. Yeah, just go paste this in your environment, everybody. So what we did was say, give me device info, project device ID, device name, sensor health state, and the timestamp. So we did this, and it got us close, but it wasn't descriptive. So Rob was like, hey, you need to do this piece here and tell me everything that's active. So I knew that if I saw it active, it's the proof. The absence of evidence is not evidence that something's absent. But if it came up active, I know those were there. If I came here and I did it like this, and I run it, I wrote something. Anyway, but anyway, what did I do? Queries. Query history.
This could be its own show.
Yeah. Anyway, when we put in the sensor health state and gave it a declare parameter, and then said, "Give me the timestamp," I was able to get it. So you came up with active, meaning you were good. You came up with a blank column, meaning the sensor is degraded where it's not communicating back, or you came up inactive, which means that you had a stale policy. So I went back and double checked, and those fields do mean that, because in Purview you can actually see the sensor health. Policy, sensor, policy compliance, sensor compliance, and one more, and figured out how to use that to be able to pull that information in. So Rod gets to click two boxes. You got to build something, and you got to help someone. That would be me. So I appreciate it.
Good job, Rod.
and then all of a sudden the customer didn't need it. But we figured out some stuff. We got it in. But I learned a lot about Purview, and I wish they exposed those tables so I could put them inside that. But the only thing you can get is the insider risk stuff, and that doesn't correlate to what I was trying to do. But they figured out something that was interesting, so I learned something, and that's a good thing.
Nice.
And the queries in the chat, anybody wants to run, it's not malicious. It'll actually just run through, look at all your sensor health, and be able to
Trust us. Trust us.
Yeah, run
Yes,
that.
Run our queries.
That'll work. Do that. So that's all I have. We got guests sitting in our green room, eating up all our snacks, drinking up all our beer. We got to get them out of here, especially that Cordell guy. Yes.
Here we are.
Look who we have here. We have the esteemed Cordell Badhoffen, and I do not know you, Sam. I thought Jimmy was coming on, but
Well,
I guess
we were just hypothesizing because I recognize Rod's $6 million man poster, and I'm like, but I checked the archives. I can't remember being on the show, so maybe Rod and I connected in a alternate reality or something. But yeah, I'm Sam Straka. It's great to be here. Hey, everybody.
thanks for coming on, sir.
Jamaica.
And
We remember around here.
if I'm not mistaken, Rod, correct me, this is the third time Red Canary or the second time?
there's
three.
it's the third. I thought it was maybe 4, but I think you're right. I think
Maybe
it's
even 4. There was an Atomic Red team, that our open source project in there.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then you guys came on, and this is third time. Yeah. So you're one of only 2 partners that come on twice. Yeah. And probably
How many 3 times?
It's like the SNL hosts. Isn't there like an award for how many times you're an SNL host? So
yeah. So thank you guys for coming on. Go ahead and do an introduction for our we had way more listeners since the last time and followers, so you probably need to do an introduction of yourself and your company. Just make sure we cover that.
Happy to. Yeah. So I'm the GM of our Red Canary plus Microsoft partnership. My goal and my remit is to know everything that Microsoft's doing, which is pretty impossible. But from the executive level on the security front, obviously from the executive team all the way down, like the Charlie Bell crew, all the way down through engineering, product management, marketing, the teams, and the deployment of the tools. So making sure that everybody on our art side, Red Canary side, is aligned well and both integrating and deploying happy customers and just making the whole thing work. Excited to say I've been at Red Canary almost 6 years, and we launched this partnership about 5 years back. Was 0% of our business, and it's now close to 40 or 50% of Red Canary's revenue. So the Microsoft partnership has been a huge success. And I'll turn it over just to quickly introduce Sam, and then we can talk about Red Canary as well, so folks out there know who we are. But a big part of that success was Sam. He's been here since pretty close to the beginning as well.
Yeah, thanks, Cordell. Again, Sam Straka. I'm a product manager here at Red Canary. I came on about 4 years ago with the express mandate to make Microsoft work, and I was kind of working for Cordell, not officially, but he was my boss, and it's been a wild ride. So these days I work on identity, and I work on sort of the umbrella application of generative AI into our application. So it's been a lot of fun. I've worked on a lot of different things across the years, but it always intersects with Microsoft. So it's great to be here talking with y'all.
that's great. Welcome. Yeah.
Very cool.
Awesome.
So you guys have been one of the early partners, whatever they call the EAP for partners at Microsoft for Copilot for security. James Key, the program manager for MSSPs and CfS. Well, holler at you guys. And sounds like you got something you want to show today, something that's going to change the world, bring world peace, cure cancer, and fix the climate.
Well, yeah, and I think it's kind of interesting too. Mention, going back to Red Canary being on the show so many times. I think every time that Red Canary has been on, it's been something different, or just seems like Red Canary is always like on the cusp of all this great evolution. So it's always, you're not like a one trick, even though the Atomic Red stuff is really awesome. But yeah. I'm glad to have you back.
Thanks, Rod. I appreciate that. And I think we feel like the same. We have these big kind of leaps forward. The latest one that we'll talk about strategic wise is obviously the Gen AI and the impact that's had, but also identity. We're super excited about it. A lot of the endpoint activity of 5-ish years back has really in many ways, that has been, I mean, the game's not over. There's still competitors out there, but it's pretty fierce in the almost like the commoditization of the endpoint sensor, right? At some level, to some degree. And so a lot of the cutting edge, and it's in many ways, it's also pushed the attackers to do more creative stuff on the other fronts, right? Gen AI and identity. So we've got some cutting edge stuff I'd like to share there. I was just, we don't want to use a ton of slides, but I think pictures do help. And I just realized, I don't know if I can share my screen if I didn't do it in the preview. Let's just try it here.
Yeah, as soon as you get up there,
We
I
love
can
pictures.
post it to the screen. We love pictures. Anything that you
pictures.
have that is animated as well, that would be.
Ooh, Sam.
If you have animated GIFs in your deck, that'd be great.
Yeah, well, now that you tell me real time here, we could have had a little more. Let's see. Do you guys, can you see that?
It's like star wipe,
Yes.
you know.
Perfect. Well, those in our new template, those little red canaries on the side are animated, but I took that out because I thought it might throw off the video.
Oh, that's so sad. You know what that reminds me of? I hate to say this. Our Halloween episode's coming up. Anybody remember the movie The Birds?
Yes, yes.
Hitchcock, man, for sure.
Maybe while Sam's talking or sharing some of his really cool cutting edge stuff, I can find the animated version. But I did want to share this because it just gives I think it gives some depth and some understanding to what's going on. Microsoft reached out to Red Canary to build this first integration, Defender for Endpoint, in the top left. If you all remember back when Defender for Endpoint wasn't called that, right? It was had a couple different names, ATP and some other things. But the short of it was, if you go back long enough, 10-ish years, it was most IT folks would almost uninstall it and put the free stuff on because it did better, as did I when I first started out in my IT career. But man, Microsoft has come the farthest, the fastest of any security partner that we have seen. And so when Rob Lefferts and the crew kind of all reached out initially, we talked about what would it look like to build an EDR sensor aspect into the AV piece of it and really combine those two. And of course, it's now industry leading. And so it's been really cool to see that process. The Microsoft development and market dominance there in many ways. And then as you look at the partnership as we go along, just kind of continuing to add to those industry leading workloads, right? You've got the identity side, all the acronyms, the MDI, MDO, MDCA, MDE, all the pieces. And so Security Copilot, as you can see, and I had a 2024 getting close to GA on their timeframe as well. So we go broad there. And if you look at kind of the way that Red Canary approaches a security operations team, because Red Canary, by the way, is we don't consider ourselves a security services company. We consider ourselves a MDR company. We are laser focused on making sure that that we stop a company's any cybersecurity threats they have. Excuse me. And so that being our mandate, right, we look at the best ways that we can do that. We look at all types of data sources. And if it contributes, we rank them basically. If it contributes to detecting threats, we go after it and we go find that data and we use it to find threats. So we don't have a large chest of all of the services and the things that go along with that. We are laser focused on our entire company, from the engineering and software team that builds the threat detection components and the engine and all of the things that integrate with Microsoft, to the people that deliver it as well. This is what we look at, right? Like as you go from left to right, where today the gap is large, but tomorrow it's much, much larger in each one of these, because just simply the demands on the team and the attacks. And I got a great quote from Brett there. You're one of your chief security advisors over at Microsoft. It's unlike anything that we've seen before. And so this is really the problem that we try to solve. Let us step in, let us watch the front lines. We will investigate, not just look at a bunch of alerts, but we'll go and investigate, right? And so pretty impressive stack here. I think Sam shared with me the other day 9 different workloads that we integrate with, or integrations that we've built with Microsoft. And so the goal is give us all the alerts, give us all the telemetry or the logs that we can get from the Microsoft tools, and then we go dig through that and find the threats and the needle in the haystacks, if you will.
We're trying to bring that down from 9. 9's too many, to say. I want it to be more like 3, but keep going. Sorry, Cordell.
Yeah, not that we
Like
want to
3,
reduce the
it's
number
whatever.
of products we integrate with, just the number of data sources, right? Like the
Right.
way that we get that data. So in a nutshell, I think that captures it. And then just with one last here, everything we see this, the way that Red Canary approaches the world, if you will, is this little waterfall pipeline. Everything in Red is our software. So Red Canary is a software company first and foremost, right? We have a large team of engineers. We're building detection rules and the engine and the software to do that. And everything in Red is our people. And so this is just a unique approach to the market and the industry, honestly. And this is why when people see Red Canary, they see something dramatically different, because if you see on the left here, we just use the generic word telemetry for basically everything that Microsoft sends over, including the logs, the raw data, the alerts, etc. But also from firewalls and things like that, the logs that customers can give us from other security products. We throw it all in the mix. The engine cranks through, and using detection analytics and rules, we basically find that correlated activity and we think is a potential threat. And a large part of our job is actually moving away. We call it noise, but it's just the other data, right? That 99.9% reduction in data for an IT or a security team to have to look through that data. It's really it's undoable. I mean, it's not a workload that they can take on. And so we ingest that data, and then these are detection engineers that are internally investigating it. So we see something wrong, we take it that next step and actually go investigate it in their environment. And then this is our threat hunters, threat hunting team, and they're customer facing, going out and working with the customer if we see something. Now, the good news is that this is our entire MDR offering, right? When you buy Red Canary, you get that all the way from left to right. We don't add on additional components or charge additional for a threat hunter to be assigned. For example, if you want to talk to them, they're available 24/7. You get assigned a team, and you will be given access to them whenever you want. So that's a unique aspect. We feel like a unique take on the cybersecurity market overall, and this is why our customers trust us, day in and day out on the front lines.
Yeah. One of the first things I thought of, and because you've been on the show before, and I do kind of understand
Yes.
your scope, what you collect as a company. One of the first things I thought of with Copilot for Security was, man, wouldn't it be great to get this Red Canary TI or this knowledge that they have collected and stuff and make it available at Copilot for Security? So this is really good.
Yeah, I think it's a great segue. And let me just jump over to the piece. Well, let me point this out. So one of the things that is interesting, because we're on a Microsoft show, right? The Microsoft MXDR approved partner came out about a year and a half ago. We are the only partner in the top right that is an MXDR, Microsoft MXDR approved leader. In the leader quadrant, excuse me. And I think that's something that is interesting both to customers, but also to Microsoft, right? This is a key part of why our partnership continues to grow and is so strong, because Red Canary follows through, and we deliver on the promises of keeping our customers secure. And so if we look at the way that we apply this to the security operations world, which is really the world that we live in, right? We're an extension. We see ourselves, and our customers see us, hopefully, as an extension of their security team. And so it's not just another vendor, it's not just another alert source or an alert generator, right? It's actually taking work off of them, because we go and investigate things and make sure there's a threat there. I wanted to kind of tie into the Gen AI aspect, and let me just click here. The way that we view the world is through excuse me, just a second. We have the way that we apply Gen AI to. Hold on one second. I pasted this slide in here, but it moved around. The way that we apply Gen AI to security operations. One second. All right. There we go. So this is a key part, and then Sam, I'll tee up into the plug-in and then let you talk about some of the identity stuff as well. But a key part of Gen AI for us is that we Red Canary typically has had pretty strongly held opinions, right? And we've dug into these 5 different areas of a SOC, and really trying to create the most value today, and then looking at maybe what comes in the future. Detect and validate are tougher for Gen AI because they're not as deterministic, right? It's not a black and white. There is a threat or there isn't. A lot of it's kind of stochastic or kind of open-ended, and it doesn't find the same thing on Monday as it does on Tuesday because of reasons, right? It'll give you those. And so we really have seen a force multiplier in our own internal SOC and with customers in these three areas that we talk about, the triage, the investigation, and the respond and remediate. And so that is an area that with the plugin that Sam's going to talk about, the Copilot for Security, what you get is we bring all of our Red Canary goodness right into the Copilot for Security world by using that plugin. And so when you go talk to security for Copilot for Security, you're not just getting Microsoft answers, you're getting Red Canary blended in and ingested as well. And so that's what we've seen really be a force multiplier because of the triage work, the investigation work that we've done. When you go and ask a question to the plugin, if you've got Red Canary, obviously a lot of that work has been accelerated or already happened, rather than kind of teeing up for it to happen or summarizing it. We've done the investigation work, and you can use that there. So Sam, let me hand off to you and kind of tee off here. We can go back and forth as needed.
Yeah, thanks, Cordell. No, it's awesome. It's really cool to see how far we've come as a team, and Microsoft team's such a great group to work with. But yeah, let's talk about Copilot. So I know that's a big, yeah. There's like a lot of buzz around Gen AI right now, and it's dangerous. It's dangerous thing to bring up, like sort of a lightning rod, right? Because people are like, until recently, you'd say Gen AI in a group of security experts, and they'd be like, well, whatever. That's all smoke and mirrors. And then there was a switch that turned, right? And everybody's like, oh no, this is my job now.
My job now.
Right? And including me, like I'm 100% in that camp. I was the grouch, and then like now it's my job. And so I think what's really interesting is that it's just more approachable than it ever has been. And to me, that's the heart of like the Copilot for Security, and why that's been so successful, and why it's such an important part of Microsoft's strategy, is that it just makes everything so approachable. Right? Since Cordell and I started this game, one of the big drivers that customers have is that you can't hire enough security experts, right? And that's the problem that's never going away. And so what I see is like an opportunity to make more people experts, right? Or to take you and up level you just a little bit. And that's what I really found with these tools that we're building with Gen AI, is that we can just make everybody a little bit faster. We can get data a little bit closer at hand with a little less expertise, and it just helps on the margins, right? I don't see anybody losing their jobs, at least around here, because there's just too much context and judgment that you need to do a good job. But it sure as heck makes you faster, right? And makes things more approachable. So, a good example is our plugin with Copilot for Security. So, we got the opportunity to go build a third-party plugin. The team was super great to work with, and it's really pretty straightforward. I mean, the plugin is essentially point us to your Open API spec. Okay, check. Our API spec's always been Open API, so that makes it easy. And then give us an example. Like what could you use this for? So the way we thought about it was, there you go. I've got a PR up to get it into GA, but my nemesis is, CI/CD. So I'm trying to fight with the unit tests in that repo and get it to actually go. But anyways,
If you need help with that, reach out.
I might, right?
right.
I've hit a brick wall, man. You were talking in the beginning, like, what have you built? What have you broke? Like both of those things.
Right there you go, right there. Check the box. Check.
Dialectic, really.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Sometimes they're one and the same. The stuff you build breaks things, right?
So true. So anyways, we got you pointed at your Open API spec, and then you give it some examples, right? And essentially you just give it, and I could I could show you.
Yeah,
Let
that'd
me,
be great.
let me see if I can pull this up here.
Yeah, because I don't have it configured in mine, so I can't show all the system actions and stuff. So
Well, I'll just give if we're gonna get real nerdy with it here, I'll just show you what's in here. If it's a little small, I'm sorry.
oh yeah.
But you know, like simple stuff, right? Fetch a list of endpoints monitored by Red Canary. Fetch a list of detections from Red Canary. Fetch detector and intelligence updates. You know, all these things that are just essentially API endpoints on our end. Detector details and specific threat detection. And so what's cool here is that you know, the technology's there, right? These APIs are not brand new. We didn't write them for this plugin, but like getting a project spun up, and like parsing the output, and all that stuff's a pain in the butt. And the cool part about the the plugin is that I can just say, "Show me Red Canary threats," and like spell half of it wrong, and then the API genies, they're the the Gen AI genies just go figure it out, right? You can see it scroll through. Like, okay, pick the right prompt. Cool, I got the right prompt. Then it'll go through and say, all right, let's call it and see if there's any data. Maybe there's not, maybe there is, but it'll come back and it'll say, this is what I've got in context. And that's just revolutionary to me, right? Like taking an API and just making it like plain text, shoot me a query. That's why I think it's so amazing. And the dangerous part in my mind is that it looks so good on the way out that you got to remember that it's just reflecting the data that it's given.
Yeah.
Right. So it can sound really confident. Oh, I got a ton of info on that endpoint. But if all the info on the endpoint is wrong, like it's still wrong data, right? The model doesn't know. It's just reflecting and like making it look nice. And so I think that's one of the things that really puts us in a great position is, Cordell was working through how we approach things earlier, and all our data is labeled, right? For 10 years we've been labeling data and not, paying people on their spare time on their lunch break to like label data. Like we have security experts that all they do is sit around and say threat, not a threat, threat, not a threat. And so, the data that's behind the scenes that kind of powers Red Canaries, what ends up in front of you on the Copilot for security screen is really, really accurate. It's been curated. It's been precise. So the Red Canary makes it accurate and good, or at least we think it's pretty good. And then the Gen AI makes it look nice and easy to get to. And so I think that combination is super powerful, and it just makes me excited about it. It's early innings, to be honest with you, but the combination is super powerful.
Yeah, if I'm listening right, I think I hear like three things where you kind of pulled some value out, where you believe Copilot for Security kind of offers that type of value, particularly with the Red Canary plugin. So we talk all the time about the skill gap, right, in the cybersecurity industry with maybe IT pros who are responsible for managing endpoints, but security is like a second job to them, right? So they don't have that huge skill set. So helps with the skills gap, right? So people can do security better when they don't have the skills that they think necessary. There's the efficiency you talked about. So it does things a little bit quicker, maybe because you can approach things quicker because you have the evidence or the data that supports remediations or how the approach recommendations and stuff like that. But then I think the last thing is probably, even though I like skills gap the best, because I think that's huge. But I think the last part is probably the most important. We can argue this, but it's the trusted part. We talked just at the beginning of the show. We talked about this methodology around making sure reports are up to date or documentation is up to date. This is kind of along the same vein. If your data, even in your own organization, cannot be trusted, you can't trust those Gen AI. Or if you enable a partner like Red Canary for Copilot for Security, you need to be able to trust that partner. And you have a long history of just doing this, just like you said, years and years of ensuring that data is accurate.
It's that high fidelity data and the confidence in the integrity of that data and the accuracy of it that also addresses the upskilling aspect, right? And does that help, Cordell and Sam, does that also help address the resistance that you might find from customers? And that, we don't necessarily have the team built out to handle all of our security needs, but we don't really know how to leverage Gen AI in a way that's actually going to drive us forward, get us to where we want to be. Does that help kind of showcase your special sauce and
Well,
Yeah,
let me ask you a quick question along those lines. We're talking about trust, fidelity, and accuracy. How often do we go back? Rob on our show probably spends the most amount of time in a generative AI environment, right? So this question is not only for Red Canaries, for everybody on the team. How often do you go back and correct the invalid or incorrect responses from it? Because I was witness to a very gross, inaccurate, and massive hallucinatory response to something that a very sharp person that uses your product thought was accurate until he dug in more. So while we were going through it, how is regenerative AI getting better by direct user interface? Not the engineers in the back who are manipulating the large language models primarily by adding more telemetry or more data. How are you guys making it better? When it gives you a wrong answer and you vet it out and that answer is dead wrong, how do you make anybody's AI better?
yeah, that's a really great question. So, we don't own the model, right? We're not in the business of fine tuning. We're using 4 Omni right now in Azure to power sort of our AI use cases behind the scenes. Because, we're not just using Copilot for security. Like, that's a really cool plugin, and I think there's a lot of power to it. But we use Gen AI internally to, sort of enable our workflows and some of our user experiences as well. And I have more to say there because, we can only improve the Copilot stuff so much, because on the plugin, we just, like I said, I pointed at the API. I tell it what the endpoints are I want it to use, and then how it frames the questions, how it does all this is sort of like we can do prompt books and stuff like that. But the way that we've been approaching this on our side is, and taking feedback from customers as well, for sure. But the way that we frame this up on our side is, we've got feedback. Feedback's really important from customers, and we look at how we can essentially how we can control the prompt so that it's only going to be wrong in sort of predictable ways, right? And the main way that we use Gen AI on our side is to extract entities from things. It's really good at that. Like, you take this 20,000 lines of JSON and like give me the user agent, right? If I don't know what the schema is or the structure, like if you give it enough examples, it can go and figure that out. And also summarizing things. And so when we're asking it to summarize something, it's more of an open-ended question. It's prone to hallucination. What we do is we give it a really strict set of data to operate on, and say, you can only produce your answer based on the activity of this user from this customer in this time frame. And your response needs to look like X, Y, and Z. And if you give it 4 or 5 examples to say, here's an example of what it should look like, here's a second example, here's a third, here's a fourth, you get very, very precise output from it that you can test. And we can test it to the degree of, like, we know if it's gone, excuse my French, batshit. If it's gone totally off the rails. I'm sorry if this is a family program.
It is.
But all right, kids.
My family's dysfunctional. It's fine, Sam. It's okay.
And that's how we approach it. I know that the Microsoft team has tons of tight controls on the Copilot side as well. I mean, to be honest, I only give y'all read access on the Copilot for Security plugin. Like, you cannot screw up Red Canary through the Copilot for Security. It's only going to give you data. It's only going to extract goodness. There's nothing you can feed it that's going to, like, update something badly on our side. And that's what really makes our customers feel like, all right, I can go experiment. I can go make a mistake because I know that there's guardrails up that are going to keep me from making a costly mistake.
Yeah, and I think that's an important thing to highlight. because I had that question earlier today as well. Some people fear Gen AI, and they hear all these nasty things about data injection and model injection and all this stuff. And yes, they exist in the real world, but not in the confines, I think, in the guardrails of what we're talking about here, right?
Yeah, I think our approach, even to Ray's question, like our approach is to make sure that we use it for what it's absolutely intended for, I guess, or what it's best at. Let's put it that way, to minimize hallucination. And so, if you look at like the plugin, I know you were kind of playing around with it there. This is it in action. It's a video just because it helps feed up the results. But you can see, based on the data from Red Canary's external alerts, we've, as Sam mentioned, the not the workbooks. What's it called, Sam? The
Cordell, go full screen. Go full screen.
Yeah.
Bottom right.
Enhance.
There we go. Prompt books. That's a good. Thank you. And so you can see it goes and says, oh yes, there are alerts involving this, right? It's proactive or preemptively asking that as part of the prompt books, and then you can see here. Now, once you do that, summarize the suspicious threat activity. Once you do that, let's look for some more timeline detail, right? And so we're actually helping and improving the analyst experience versus just like spitting up a bunch of information. One, that it could be hallucinating around, and two, that could be probably just wrong. And so, as Sam mentioned, when it goes back and gets information, it's you can see on the right-hand side, it's kind of building. We've pinned it, and so it's kind of building the details. And then if we jump towards the end here, it does move into recommended actions. It outlines the timeline. It tells them what's going on. And so this type of data interaction, if you will, is even the list of recommended actions. We don't just let the Gen AI just kind of willy-nilly go pull actions from the from the universe. It only has a succinct list of things that it can do, or that it's seen us do, it's seen our analysts do. And so as we do this and make these recommendations, the last layer of defense, if you remember the little picture that I showed you, right, the waterfall from left to right, that last little circle of red canaries, or that last little red circle, are red canaries that are the threat hunting and the detection engineering teams. They look at all of this, right, and they screen it as it goes out. And so if it's a confirmed high threat or high severity threat, we're not going to be throwing a potential or even risking the potential of hallucination in there.
Okay. Right. So you mentioned that your product is built on the OpenAI model, the Azure resident one, and not necessarily Copilot, but I'm seeing the Copilot. Rod, well, that's your environment? Who was showing their environment just now?
That was me.
Okay. So you guys are using it and pulling in information from the customer's environment for whatever overlay that you have, right? Because there's no MSSP model for it. So you guys are embedded into it. So without giving away the secret sauce, is this feeding into your EDR platform so that the services you provide to them directly, or you write an API, shim into it? How are you guys achieving it?
Yeah, so it's a great question, and I think the key part, if you're talking about the Copilot for Security, plugin, is that this is all the customer's data, right? We're super transparent, and that open API that they essentially create a token in their environment and say, hey, I give this token permissions. I'm going to go give that to the Copilot for Security under the Red Canary plugin, and it's going to have access to my data in my Red Canary environment. So they explicitly go out and say, like, yeah, you can go get these API calls. But it's all their data, right? And it's all coming from their Red Canary environment. They're authorizing that Copilot for Security plugin to go and get it and to put it into these summaries. And so, yeah, exactly. And so, it's, as far as secret sauce goes, there's nothing in that data that's it's customer data, obviously, so it's very sensitive. And we only turn this plug on because you guys take care of data really well. Like Microsoft is extremely good and robust privacy controls, and we do the same thing on our side when we're using these Azure models with our own infrastructure. Data privacy is paramount, right? So we wouldn't have joined the program if it wasn't under assurances that the data was really strongly protected. So I don't know if that was the thrust of your question, but I veer it that way just because we get a lot of customers asking like, hey, I don't want anybody training on this. And I don't want anybody leaking stuff. And so, we pay very close attention to how we use that. But the customer goes in and says, yep, you can go hit my APIs to use this plugin.
Yeah, well, I'm running into some customers now that my projects are being held up until such time the use of any Copilot passes legal inspection. And think about that. Think about some of these bigger companies who may not have a legal department that's super up to date on the current technology. They understand data privacy from a abstract perspective. You're not supposed to see it. You're not supposed to have access to it. You're not supposed to share it, things like that. But when they started looking at some of these super modern things from the time they started, they can't sometimes map what the applicable and adequate protections are against this thing called AI. So let me ask, if you have a customer, and you guys are doing this, sounds like you have a customer, how do you protect yourself? Rod talked about prompt poisoning, LLM impersonations, things like that, but nobody's really talked about the biggest perceived threat: customers. They still have full access to this environment. Are you considering that they could go in and do something that could alter the ability for you to do your job? Because and Rod, correct me if that's a management overlay that's not applicable or not possible. But if you're still sharing the same environment, which is the Copilot for security model, and they have the ability to go in and do all these things, do you ever consider that could affect the way you can provide the service effectively?
No, yeah, it's a good question.
Messing around.
No, it's okay because it's only read only, right? That API token,
Yeah,
right, that they give us can't write to our system. Like I said at the top, like the label data is the gold at the end of the rainbow here, and they can't like change it. If we labeled it as a threat, they can't go in through Copilot and say, hey, go write everything that was a threat to not be a threat. No. They can only read out. And if it tried to do anything else, there's just no permission for that to do it. Because the way it works, and you can look at this in any plugin you put into the Copilot for security, like they'll show you which API endpoints
that's in there.
that they're going to point to, right? And so you can go inspect yourself. Don't take the description at its word. Go in there and be like, hold on a second. I'm going to go plug in Copilot for security into system Y. Well, let me go look at System Y's API. Let me go see their plugin documentation and see what APIs they're giving Copilot for security access to. If you look at ours, that's just read endpoints. And so nothing posting, no puts, it's just reads. And so they could say, hey, delete Red Canary. And it would be like, man, I can't do that. All I have is a read access, even if that prompt tried to, which it likely wouldn't, given the controls that are on the Copilot side. So that's how we protect ourselves, is that it's essentially like a really awesome API explorer, but that's it. There's no data interactivity coming back into Red Canary.
Well, I think the other thing is that once you disable that plugin, that connection is literally cut off. It's just enable and disable access to that input.
And when we talk about the secret sauce aspect, it's not so much necessarily the data as the treasure trove. It's the exact prompts available that kind of helps develop that framework for how to approach the situations, right? Like that's almost as powerful and a value add for the SOC, right? And then because you're led service is the Red Canary part of the slide, right? That's your special sauce, being able to engage with the customer and help them understand what exactly is going on as they shore up on their own educational gaps, right?
100% right. Yeah. And then Brody, I'll kick it to you in a second. 100%. We're happy to share that, right? The prompt books that we've written, I think the hardest part for customers is like, okay, I've got the world at my fingertips. What question do I start with? The prompt books is a really great sort of intro tool, and we've got a handful of them that we wrote for our plugin that you can just like put in a host name and hit go, and it'll start like a sequential host name investigation or an IP address. But yeah, if it's secret sauce, you can have that. Right? Like we love to make our customers better. And and the community better, like Atomic Red Team, case in point. So,
Well, and
yeah.
Sam, I think that's a great point to highlight, and maybe Edward to kind of help, and Ray to kind of help think about the way that we've approached this, and the kind of the innovative, I guess, aspect to it is that it wasn't, Microsoft is doing its whole thing. Let's plug in Copilot for security, and now it's basically gonna, it's got the Gen AI juice behind it to basically go and run wild in all of the Red Canary world. It's constrained, right? And I think with constraints, as we all know, that's what allows us to go 65 or 75 on the freeway, right? We've got the speed limit, we've got the lane it can swim in, etc. And so what we've done is for a customer who's got Microsoft, they've got all the alerts and detections and threats and all this, the Microsoft goodness and the workloads there. A customer who's got Red Canary, up until this plugin, if you were trying to use Copilot for security, there's kind of this brick wall in the middle, right? You weren't able to go, and Copilot didn't have access to what Red Canary was doing. And so in many cases, you could ask it a question or ask it what was going on in the environment or threats and things like that, and it would be limited to what Microsoft knows about. And so think of this as Red Canary's been doing all of its goodness and detections and taking the things that it finds from Microsoft, and we go and do our full investigation, right? And bring our detection engineers, people into the mix, and they're jumping in a customer's environment, but they're kind of two separate sides of the coin. Yeah, we update some alerts over in Microsoft, but that's about it. And so if you put the Copilot for security, it's literally a bridge in the middle. You can now see the Microsoft Copilot world can see what Red Canary is doing, and the things that we suggest and the recommended actions and things like that. We'd love to see those integrated deeper into like automated actions, and that's kind of a future idea. But the point is that the plugin is actually guiding an analyst and accelerating them through this, not just what to do now that we have an alert. Here's a fully investigated threat. Red Canary has told me what's going on. And even in those cases, it really helps. You'd be surprised for security operations teams. They learn quite a bit by the ones that we mark as not a threat, right? Like it got tossed over. It was a medium and maybe even a high severity. We get a lot of questions back to do kind of a debrief on like, why did you think this wasn't a threat? And so now that the plugin knows about Red Canary, it can go see all of our notes and all of our analyst work, and it can take care of all of that without us having to schedule time to go do that offline. So that's just a small example, I think.
Very cool.
Awesome.
Cool.
Brody, I think you've got a question.
Yeah, no, it's all good. I appreciate you breaking that down. Okay, so I work with a number of organizations who have recently spun up Copilot for security. They're using it in their SOC. I like what you're doing. When you talk to customers about what you bring to the table and the different, you kind of touched on some of that. I just want to understand like the specific value proposition. Is it the data and the context that you provide? Is it the helping hand? Is a bit more gentle than maybe the Microsoft helping hand when it comes to guiding the security operations individual through an incident? Like, can you help me understand like what makes Red Canary like make Copilot for security better as opposed to just standalone?
Yeah. Well, that's not our mission, first of all, Brody. Like, just like, not to be mean, but like, we love it. But like, job one is detect threats in the customer environment. That's what we do. That's all we do. We do it on Microsoft. We do it on other platforms. Anything, anytime, anywhere, right? Like that's our job. That's number one, what customers pay us to do. And so in the situation where they have all the stars aligned, right? They have Red Canary, they have Microsoft, they have Copilot for security. The reason why I think it's compelling and worth the trouble to like spend your credits on, and or you guys don't do credits anymore? I'm sorry, is that a touchy subject?
SEU consumption.
Yeah. Is that still a thing?
Yeah, we send out coupon books to our favorite people. You keep going. You're good.
We also monitor time by centons.
Oh, that's so funny. Coupon book. You got to feed the meter as you're asking prompts. No, okay, I'm off target. Okay, so all these things line up, right? Why would you set it up? I think the number one reason is because as you're navigating Copilot for security, you're looking for insight into something really specific, right? And Red Canary, for customers who use us, is a critical part of their security program. And so if you're in an incident, right, something's gone bump in the night, a question that people have is, what does Red Canary know about this thing? And so to me, like the connection there, not having to jump portals, do this sort of thing, just like put it in the chat. Like, does Red Canary know about this thing? Because like everybody's eyes on glass on this thing, and having it come back and like summarize that for you is just a big time saver. And so, I think, like I said at the beginning, early innings here. I think the way that the data is going to interact and like is going to get better and better. But just having and I don't try not to toot our own horn too much, but people really depend on us that use us, and having that data really close at hand and easy to get to makes it worth configuring the plugin for when you need to know quickly. And I think what's going to be amazing is that as this thing, and it's already gotten better since we've set it up, tying everything together, right? Like, what does Red Canary know? Put that in a report with what Microsoft knows. Print, and I'll ship it to my boss as I'm like rubbing the sleep out of my eyes. You know what I'm saying? So I think that's the most straightforward use case, Brody. But it's going to get cooler and I think more sophisticated as everybody kind of gets into it and figures out what these use cases are.
What are some of the cool or interesting things that you're working on that you can talk about?
Sure. Yeah. So, one of the things, you mean just generally?
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's part of this. It's part of this whole thing. Yeah.
I took my 2-year-old
You can
campus.
publicly discuss. Yes.
Yeah.
was-
Sorry. Still talking about Red Canary, Copilot for Security on a
Listen,
security
life. What
podcast.
are you doing in half an hour?
Yeah,
What-
No, I'm just-
Sorry, I didn't set that barrier there. My bad.
Bro,
Yeah.
you got to get your prompt engineering dialed in, man, because I'm about to go and hallucinate on you right now. No,
Distortion.
um,
And Sam,
So-
I can capture a few of those if you want to jump, or you can jump in either way.
of what we're working on?
Yeah.
Yeah, let me talk about a few things on the AI side. So,
Here we go. World premiere.
probably the coolest thing that we've got going on right now is the team has got this thing going called a user baseline report. So part of Red Canary is ingesting tons of telemetry, as Cordell kind of laid out at the beginning. And as part of that, we get a ton of login information from Enter ID, from Defender for Identity, like we get alerts and like logins and MFAs, but not only from that, from Okta, from CrowdStrike, from all these other platforms that we integrate with, and it all goes into the big bucket, And again, I talked about at the top, what's Gen AI really good at is extracting entities, and like pulling stuff out of diverse data. And so what we can do is essentially, as a customer's been on board with us for a while, we can sort of pick a person and say, what are they up to? So we do this crazy. Don't ask me to explain data science here because I just lean on my experts here in house. But we do this like a priori analysis, which sets up all these combinations. So essentially, like Cordell's, in Colorado here, and he's on his government, as I said, government, his Red Canary issued machine, and he's generally logging in via our single sign-on. And so, if we say something weird like, oh, this time he logged in from Redmond, but he's still on his, company machine. This isn't mind-blowing stuff, but think about all the different data sources we can pull together from like the MFA, all that sort of stuff. It's really incredible how we can set up like there's something weird here, but it's not a big deal. Versus a lot of things are weird here and it's becoming a big deal. And you can put that together instead of in like, this is a 25 on the risk scale. Put it in English for people. It's the great thing that Gen AI's got really well. So it says, hey, Cordell's generally pretty consistent and secure in his pattern of behavior. He's always using MFA. He's always using his corporate issued machine. He's, compliant with his policies. But recently there was this one that looked strange, right? Because I think, so much of these identity investigations are, okay, cool, Microsoft sees something weird. But that's not the hard part. The hard part is then going to like, diving through the data to figure out what's normal. Okay, so if this was weird, like how weird? In a weird way, or weird in like he's just on vacation way? And so if you can, what we've got is called this user baseline report. You can essentially just go, show me what's going on for this person. Give me 5 seconds, Cordell, riff for a little bit, and I'll pull one up for you guys, and we can.
So somewhat like a user entity
I got it.
behavior type of report or something like that.
Yeah, detecting
Yeah.
anomalous user activity. But I just want like the weird index. I want to understand how weird I'd get on the the weird. Now, this is a weird situation. Yeah, okay.
He's always getting flagged. I don't know what that means. But.
Well,
Sam, is this what you were talking about, right?
Let me see. Is it Jimmy's?
Very good.
Jimmy's report?
Yeah.
oh, geez.
Yeah. Okay, so here's a good example, right? So he primarily accesses systems from the US, predominantly using Chrome in this browser. It's super basic, but man, if you're looking at a suspicious activity alert, this is the rubric, you know? This is I can start to use my human judgment comparing normal versus why this is weird to kind of make that decision. I can see why the algorithm flagged this is weird, but I'm not concerned based on his pattern and normal behavior. So we're figuring out ways that the team on the back end already uses this every day. Like our detection engineers and analysts, as they're working through investigations, have access to these reports. And what we're working on is exposing that to customers, right? So you click on something and it's available. And it's another one of these things where in the future, I can see this being available through the Copilot for Security plugin to say, hey, like, compare this alert to Red Canary's most recent user baseline summary for this user. And it would figure out which, that's not live today. Forward-looking disclaimer, we're working on that sort of thing. But I can see that being like, V2, V3 of this relationship is being able to tie this stuff together.
So being able to reference some type of modern watch list, and you have to look at the frequency. Is this a schedule? Is this behavior driven? Is it alert driven? Because that conversation came up in one of my breakout meetings that said that would be a cool use, but how do you schedule it? I could make a logic app run or something, but is that true threat hunting and risk analysis? But and would it run full time? Or once you identify high value assets or high value targets, you leverage this particular skill to go in and do it. And the harder thing is, when do they come off the bad list? When a certain amount of watermarks go below a threshold.
So this is what's so cool. And I'm sorry, keep going. I know where you're.
Yeah, that's what I'm going. Let's see.
Yeah, so this is why it's so cool, is because it's not static like that.
Okay.
Right? The cool part is that all the logic's in the prompt and the data's dynamic underneath it. Right? All that's happening below the scenes is logins, just raw telemetry building up over time. And then, on demand, when we shoot that prompt to the model, we say, hey, take, 30 days worth of login data, however much that is, put it in the prompt, because with these new models, you can stuff tens of thousands of tokens in these things, right? So we can give it this massive JSON block of just like, here's everything they've been doing, analyze it right now, right? What's their risk today based on this like dynamically generated set of data? So we don't have passive watch lists or like Boolean, like they're on or off. It's really cool because in the moment, like in context, you can say, give me the baseline report.
And I think, as we all know, just the nature of the beast in identity is there's a lot of noise, right? There's a lot of notifications, a lot of false positives. It's just tough because humans are human, right? We do weird stuff all the time. That's normal, or we think it's normal. And I think if you look at like an intra, excuse me, someone correct me there, intra, I think. The intra.
I've heard it both ways in the past week. So
yeah.
Intra.
The product team was like Sintra with without the S, Intra. So you guys let me know if you guys settle it internally over there. Let me know.
We still haven't settled on Azure or Azure, so it'll never happen.
But when we get an intra alert, for example, the first thing we do is we want to make sure it's real and investigate it, and all the things that's what Red Canary does on behalf of a customer, right? They don't have to go jump in and log into the dashboards and go figure it all themselves. That's what we do for them, right? Like we take it that next step, and Red Canary's MDR investigates it. And so we immediately, because of Gen AI, we immediately take that one intra alert, and if we think it's valid and not a false positive, but we automatically go and look at about 50 plus other features about that alert, right? We get the device, the browser, the time of day, the OS, on and on and on. And so as we build out this baseline, UEBA is a part of it, but we're actually looking much broader and to figure out, okay, what's really going on here, and let us tell the story. Because in identity, much different than endpoint is kind of black and white, right? There's a threat or there's not, there's an IOC or there's not. It gets a little more complicated in behavioral analysis and things like that. But man, on the identity world, it's really about the story, right? Like understanding what that's and how to tell the story. And so if you went and did that with your team, with your SOC, and said you've got to investigate every intra alert and run it to ground, I mean, they would be buried, right? And so that's really the value on top of Intra, and specifically the identity solution that we're working on, is to take these agentic workflows, right? Like basically modeling what an analyst would do, and take step by step, build these agentic workflows, and so that we can look at it in a similar way to a human, and we can actually logically, with a lot of the updates to even recently some of the Gen AI models that can explain the reasons things happen, we can present that to an analyst in a more consumable format and explain, like, this is why we think it's a threat. And our analysts have looked at it, and we baselined the user, and now we've done that full investigation, right? And so that's like a human reviewed Gen AI output that's really I think the secret sauce.
So it's almost like a Copilot traffic cop, if you will, right? So trying to minimize those bigger hallucinations, I guess, to ensure that the responses can be more trusted.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it. And I think if you talk to a team that's running Intra live out in the wild, there are customers, right? It's a very real struggle trying to stay on top of all of the noise, and not to say noise is even a bad thing, right? In many cases, you need to keep that because it's user activity. You need it for compliance reasons and all that stuff. But if it's not a threat, interestingly, right, the way Red Canary looks at the world, if it's not a threat or contributing to finding a threat, it's noise, right? Like that's just one or the other for us. And so because we are so laser focused on finding a threat, in many cases, there are still needs to keep that data. And as I mentioned, compliance and many others. But as we kind of look at building that last mile, that's the piece that is tough for any software vendor like Microsoft to own, right? That last mile, like what is a security operations team actually doing with this tool? I want to make it think like an analyst, right? And so Microsoft does a great job at summarizing, suggesting, detecting, like a lot of those pieces. But that full investigation piece is still tough, right? And that's a big piece of where we've focused and the value add that we bring.
Well, and I love that. I love that you're focusing on the identity piece, because literally, we've talked about this before, that's the first pillar. If you don't have your identity secure, you literally can forget about everything else.
Yeah, I think, and that's kind of become the new perimeter, right? I mean, you've got to be able to tackle that. And I think if you look at the way that identity analysis has been done, or identity like detection and protection has been done in the past, there's a lot of AI promises there that still are a ways out, as Sam was describing. And so we've really focused on what do we give you today. In fact, Sam, I think we got approval for our team to kind of show this timeline of like what we've been working on the Gen AI front. That I think could be interesting for the crew here. If you're all right, pop this up. It's a little detailed. Let me show you this and see.
No, and I can, if you throw it up, Cordell, I can kind of just broad strokes talk about what it is. I think that don't read all this, because it's like, oh my gosh, really? Watch the video afterwards. You can pause it and read the whole thing. But I think there's a couple takeaways here. Number one, we're not brand new to this. The first time we started like vector searching was in 21, end of 21 into 22. The team's been experimenting with it since before it was cool, back when I was like a grouch about it. And then they've just really been like dogged on it. And I think the cool part to see is that like this is all towards that goal of detecting threats. We talked about it earlier. There's a lot of cool stuff out there. If we're not doing that right, nobody pays us anymore. So it's all in service of detecting threats, and there's just so much more to do. So much more to do. Thanks, Cordell.
Yeah, and I think just highlighting intra here, even in the last, since the beginning of this year, a lot of the intra data that's coming out and doing some of these deeper identity analysis, we've found shockingly high results from some of those analysis when we look at like percent of noise addressed, or we can knock down 99% of those false positives, for example, things like that. So real tangible outputs for a SOC.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Thank you. That's very good.
I think Edward is muted. He's wanting to say something. Hey, while Edward's finding his mute button, I did want to show this. I have this in case anyone's interested, going back kind of to the Copilot world. There are, and I want to thank Red Canary for supplying these. There are a bunch of canned or vetted, I guess, prompts for the Red Canary plugin for Copilot for security out here. I'll have the link in the show notes, but there's some really cool stuff out here for a host name and IP address. Some of those prompt books that you guys were talking about a little bit earlier.
So it sounds like Red Canary is full steam ahead. It aligns with what other partners are saying. Hey, we're making innovations, we're creating. At the same time, I think you're running parallel to the customers. They're doing it simultaneously with you because you guys have dual assets of sort. And so I've always been of the sort that the innovation will necessarily come from the service providers and the consultants. Is going to be by very nature of how this product is being presented. It's going to come from the customer. And I think that partners who are going to be successful are really going to have to partner with the customer. But if the customer outstrips you and advances more than you, they're going to go, and we say that to Microsoft too. You got to start not just own the secret sauce. Don't let the customer innovate the sauce, and they like their taste better, right? And I see that, but this is super interesting. I'm seeing that this is a consistent theme that everybody is still trying to figure out what that thing is, right? Because I think it's because you don't know the full capability of the product. Hell, I think the people that built it in Microsoft don't know the full capability of
it's clearly early days, I think, for everybody, right?
Yeah. So. Yeah, it's interesting. You do something. I learned more using CfS by making mistakes, and even the mistakes go, I'm like, oh, that's an interesting response back. I think that's not what I was expecting, but the response is still useful. Now then I go pretty bird, I go down the wrong path and I have to come back on. But this is great. I see that you guys are really putting your money, putting your time into it, and going to build this thing. And the cool part about it, doesn't seem like the thing will ever just have an endpoint. The thing has to get better. Whatever that thing is going to look like. What's the cool name of your product? Of your Copilot offering?
I give you 3 guesses. It's called Red Canary Copilot.
Don't that know people? Completely wins. There you go. Just like
guys.
Yeah, I'm telling you.
Wow.
And the crowd goes wild.
Everybody's going to know what it does. You know?
Yeah. At least there's no fear of having to rebrand every 6 months. So
yeah, Microsoft will be rebranding it next month.
Can I make a joke?
Money on it, right?
Can I make a joke? What if we switch it to Copilot for Red Canary?
Yes.
That already happened with Microsoft.
you might have some MST lawyers calling you about that. They want to have words with your marketing, session. But
we're big on just calling a product what it does. That's what we try.
That's all it is, right? Yeah. Well, Cordell, it's always been a pleasure to have you on the show, man. I really appreciate you taking time out to come show this. And as Rod said, of the 3 times you come on, they've all been different. And they all been like, hey, we're getting better. We're standing in the forefront. We're doing this. Sam, good to meet you. And come on and tell us about, what you guys are breaking, what you guys are building, what you guys are fixing, or who you're helping. And that's a good thing. And shout out to Cordell for agreeing to send me, Brody, Rod, and Ray a shirt that fits, because this shirt's tight. My circulation is cut off. I can't feel my fingers.
You're bulking up, Edward. You're bulking up.
Last time. Yeah, there you go. And
He
doing
wears those small shirts on purpose.
No, I don't. You must think I'm around much. Ooh, I didn't see that there. I'm like over there. There you
I
go.
will be, yeah.
Shade. Well, guys, thank you so much. We look forward to seeing some more of the innovations that come out. If you guys bring some more out, let us know. Come on. We have a Christmas show every year. We found out our followers who want to come down and dress up for Christmas and do that. I'm really, from a consumer standpoint, I got a big bag of popcorn. I'm just watching. I'm watching what's happening, right? And do that.
Yeah, and I think you'll see identity become a big focus around what we do with Microsoft kind of going into this next year. That would be a strategic push for us. And of course, obviously the Intra Gen AI story that we've told today will just kind of continue to build on that.
Yeah, in the close of the show, I say that those are two things I see most people sort of betting that on. If I had to speak of product purview, or if it was generic security compliance or data protection, and the other one's identity.
Yep.
The threat and the incident, the threat and the threat hunting and true incident response, I'm still seeing everybody struggle with. After you go take one of these courses to figure out what a real IR incident looks like when confirmed breach, that's hard. That seems to be very abstract. And threat hunting is abstract because I'm looking for something that may not exist. I'm hunting for something that I'm looking for absence that it didn't happen. But data is real, and identity is real. So those two things, I've seen a lot of partners, and even Microsoft say, yeah, we can pivot on these things because we can get tangible stuff that's very rarely hallucinatory. Because I hate to see Copilot come back and tell me a threat about a user that doesn't exist in my environment. Then we got a problem. Well, everyone, as we close out the show, I'd like to thank again to Red Canary coming on, Cordell, Sam, to any of the Atomic Red team that are out there listening to your counterparts and peers. Still a big fan of you guys. Keep doing the good work. And we'll be back next week. More good IT and security goodness. The flavor in your ear. There you go.
Crossing fingers.
That's my nickname from college.
And since Ron is leaving us, maybe he'll be back by the next show since he's taking time off for his birthday. You never had a birthday. There you go. All right, everyone. Same time next
Rod,
week.
you're not special.
Bye.
That's right.
Thank you.